also serves on 3 committees: Subcommittee on Coast Guard and Maritime Transportation, the Subcommittee on Highways and Transit, and the Subcommittee on Aviation, all of which are of critical importance to us here in Alaska. Well, Congressman Young, with those introductory remarks, I'll turn it over to you. And when you get done, we'll have a Q&A. And there are some question cards on the table, so if you have some questions, you can write it down on that. Or if you just have questions, you can just speak up. I think, we don't have to be very formal here, so feel free to just speak up and we'll answer questions. So, Congressman Young.
Thank you. If I asked, was there any question time to sit down, I'd answer them too. I was telling my table, when I was 14 years old, unbeknownst to me, I broke my back. And we didn't have a doctor within 50 miles, of no insurance, with no health care program. I felt, I'm banged up before. And I played football and I boxed and I've done all the things you want to do, and I've done everything you can in Alaska. But when you get more mature, your bones start doing strange things. The back didn't heal this way, it healed sideways. So I'm slipping a little bit and it makes me be painful. And my poor wife has to, Ann, by the way, is back there. She has to put up with me because when I hurt, give her a hand. When I hurt, I'm not very happy. I'm like the mean old grizzly bear, I can tell you that right now. So right now I have half a glass of wine, I'll be in good shape, and I expect to be a relatively informal session. I've got a lot of things written down here. I might go over them, might not go over them. The infrastructure package has been put together by 25 senators, bipartisan, and I think has a partial agreement from the president, if you can depend on his helpers agreeing to it. It's about $1.2 trillion, which is still a lot of money. And the problem with that bill and the bill that we had passed out of the House, which is a terrible bill, it's only about $600 billion, but it really knocks Alaska. There's nothing in that bill, the House side that passed. And it is not a transportation bill as far as I'm concerned, because most of the money goes into something besides transportation, taking lead out of people's houses. I think they take lead out of some people back in Congress, we'd be better off. But there's no real transportation issue as far as salvation goes. So the bill is passed, not bipartisan, totally partisan. I don't think there's maybe one Republican vote, the rest were no, because there was no cooperation. There is no cooperation now in that committee, and I was chairman of that committee. It all comes out of the Speaker's house. That's really what it boils down to. Anyway, that's before the Senate now. And I do believe what's going to happen now at the bill the bipartisan group put together will go to the floor, or go to the Senate floor, and it may not pass. I think it will. But then when it does, then they go back and you negotiate with the House. And the bill we got so bad, how far is AOC and that group willing to go? Because it is really a dream bill for everybody who has any problems that's in that bill. It's not an infrastructure bill. I'm afraid they may stick by their guns and say, this is what we're gonna have, and we won't do anything, and we'll put the bill in reconciliation. And that's really a bad way to do business, because it hurts Alaska. We'll lose that formula that I put in under TLU and been protected by Ted Stevens and our senators now, and it's probably, we get $5 for every dollar we put into the trust fund, which is bigger than any other state in the union, and I get in a little part of that too later on. And so the big crux of the whole matter, none of them have a way to pay for the bill. Now you can't do that. I mean, I've been arguing this since I was chairman. I wanted to raise the gas taxes. We had mostly cars wearing gas, 5 cents and index it, because when we passed it, actually in 1969 we passed the first tax bill, and in 91 we raised it 18.5 cents. Some of you might remember that. But the buying power, because we didn't index it, is about right now about 9 cents if we're lucky as far as buying power. So we've dropped, and then we develop a better car. Our cars get a lot better mileage than we passed that tax bill. So the fund is broke. We borrowed $159 billion to shore up the fund from the general fund. And that leads me into part of this, I don't know whether you know it or not, but we spent in 17 months, we did, more money than we spent in World War II. And not just numbers, in buying power. Now we're $30 trillion in debt. And I have people tell me, we can just keep printing money, it won't affect us, there won't be no inflation, everything will be hunky-dory. I've been through my life, I'm 88 years old, I've watched 5 countries go totally broke for doing the same thing. So don't buy that gobbledygook that we can't be hurt, especially in the inflation end of it. And that affects everybody, including those on fixed income, those on pensions. It's gonna destroy them as far as I'm concerned. I don't think we can borrow money to build infrastructure. I think we have to pay for it. And there's where I get in trouble. I say, okay, you got two choices. You can do it by gas tax, because we have mostly gas-driven cars, but we have 7 million electric cars running on our highways right now, not paying a nickel, in fact, get a tax break. That's gotta stop. And now I would like to see a mileage tax. What I'm saying a mileage, they said, well, how do you collect it? Well, there's numerous ways to collect it. One of the ways, any car made after 2000, they know where you are anyway. You know how many miles you're driven. That's already documented. Every car maker has that. And what we'd have is they would take and report your car to the government. We would set the price of the mileage. Would it be with 1 cent, 2 cents, 3 cents? I don't know. Whatever it makes to make that fund viable. Now, the reason I'm so hopped up about this idea of infrastructure, we cannot be a strong economic force in this world if we don't have infrastructure. We're based on that, export and import, and we need our roads fixed, our bridges fixed, expanded, and we need our ports fixed, our railroads fixed, and our airports fixed. So we can interchange this global economy which we're in, whether we like it or not, and we'll have the ability to do that. Now, we have not done a good job. We're way behind. We're ahead for any country in the world for a long time, and all of a sudden we begin to slip backwards, and we're really backwards right now. The thing that bothers me, I don't think President Biden, I met with him 4 times, by the way, and he's all hopped up about his jobs bill, this infrastructure bill. And he said, look what China's doing. And I told him very politely that China can do what they're doing because they don't have our form of government. You think of the money we spend on permits and denials, lawsuits, they don't have any of that. And so they can outproduce us and outperform us because they have a different form of government. Now, I'm not advocating a dictatorship unless I'm the dictator. I'm all for it. But that's what's happening as far as competition goes. But if we want this country to be the country I believe in, and it's productive and providing employment for young people that want to work, we need to have this infrastructure built, and I think we can build it. If we get to come to grips with how to pay for it. That is the big crux, because I don't want to talk about it. I talk about it all the time. We go into one bill that the House did pass, there's some earmarks, forget it, guys. They gave us $20 million per member if you're a Republican. If you're a Democrat, you got about $100 million. Now that'll be paid back later on, but it was saying that problem of earmarks does. Hello, Mr. Baker, how are you, sir? And good to see you. And I'm fine, but by the way, I have an office policy. The last guy in buys the drinks. Here. But, you know, the whole program, there's more emphasis on the idea of infrastructure. It's a popular issue, but no one wants to pay for it. And you're gonna have to pay for it, gentlemen, and I'll tell you, ladies, what's hurt me in Alaska, and I get outside around my own constituents, we have the lowest fuel tax in the whole state of Alaska. I mean, whole United States of America. Everybody, what difference does that make? I'll tell you the difference it makes. If we don't raise it and try to create a trust fund, they say you can't do it. I want to put it in a fund for highways. If we don't do that, I get hit every time on that formula. You don't even have a high tax, so we're going to eliminate that fund. That $5 that comes to us every time for every dollar you put in will be cut out. So that's the real challenge I think ahead of us as far as the state of Alaska. Well, I have the reports from engineers about the bridges in the state of Alaska. I think there are 36 bridges in Alaska that are now at a point could be dangerous, could break down, cut the flow of traffic out. Try going to Seward or the Kenai, have one of those bridges go out. So we have to put the money in those bridges to keep our structure up. Railroad, big time. Maybe not in Alaska. I'm hoping we will expand that railroad, but the nation as a whole has to improve upon the railroad. We haul more on railroads now than we do with trucks, but trucks deliver it to the smaller deposits right here. There's nothing in this room that didn't come here with a truck, other than ourselves. People don't understand. So I'm a big supporter of the trucking industry. Well, we need that. We need our ports expanded. We need the railroad heads that go into those ports to be expanded and no traffic jams so we can move it out. Those are all possible if we get off our duffs and say, bite the bullet and say, we're going to pay for it, put it together, and do it bipartisanly. Right now, there's 25 senators, but the House has not been included at all. I do believe Nancy will stick by the AOC group, and that means we won't have a bill. And that's going to be the big challenge to America as a whole. politically, right up front with you, it's not all bad for our side of the aisle. Now, having said that, I will say, I said, talk to my table here, one of the things that I sort of enjoy with Juno makes us look good. And we need that right now. But, our government itself is not functioning. And it's there's numerous reasons. One is the mass media, social media, instant contact, and we broke the House down. When I first went there, the committee chairman ran the House. They ran it. That was good. They knew the issues, and we worked together. And they changed that, started with Newt Gingrich, it's bipartisan. They started with Newt Gingrich, he didn't get too far. Nancy became speaker, and she ended up splitting the House right in half by making one side the majority against the minority. There are no Republican problems, there are no Democrat problems. If there's a problem, it's jointly. And we ought to work together. And we don't do that. I'm probably the best worker with any of them, and I'm a single member and I have to do that. But I'm just saying this is wrong. Now, why did that happen also, as the media brought up? And the other factor, the thing that nobody really recognizes, we come to work on Monday night at 6:30 and have 2 votes. And we go home at 3:30 Thursday. No one knows anybody anymore. There is no connection with anybody. And a lot of people you don't question it, you may not remember it. The Trans-Alaskan Pipeline, that was my bill. Forget that, Steve, it was my bill. And it was started in the House by myself, with the help of John Melcher and John Dingell, who was the most powerful chairman of all. But he and I were friends before I got into Congress because he and I went hunting together. And people forget that. You go together out and you sit in a duck blind with a guy, you end up being liking or killing one or the other. And I happen to like him, so then I'd go to just remember relationships. I'd go to him and say, "No, Mr. Chairman, this only affects Alaska." It wasn't the pipeline, it's another thing. And I said, it doesn't affect anybody else. It's something that Alaskans need for Alaska. Okay, Don, let's do it. And it get done. In one of those bills, he get it done for me. And we don't have that relationship anymore. We have the ability not to know one another. Families don't know one another, kids don't know one another, wives don't know one another. Because everybody goes home on the weekends. Now, I don't do that, I have to tell you right up. And by the way, I'm going to test you guys. Who's going to get the hands first up? Who was the first Alaskan congressman? Who? There you go. You're ahead of the ball game right there by the drinks. Ralph J. Rivers. How many times did he come back to Alaska? Huh? No, one time. One time. Okay, now who was the second congressman? Who?
Pollock?
Pollock. Tim, you know your issues right now. Pollock. How many times did he come back?
Twice.
No, 4 times. Okay. Who was the next congressman? No. Page. How many times did he come back? 12 times. Now the reason was we were limited to 12 trips. The taxpayers paid for 12 trips. So we bought our wives back. I went back to this being known one another. We bought our kids back. And we worked together as families and together. They had big fights and then go out and have dinner. But we knew one another. And then in the big, brilliant group of people that got elected, they passed us and gave us 52 round trips a year. And that started the decaying of the Congress, breaking it down because everybody goes home. And now you don't want to hear all that. I'm just telling you what. Now, who gains the power after that happens? Who gains the power? Come on, class.
Lobbyists.
Who?
Lobbyists.
No.
Staff.
No, not the lobbyists. No. The president. And I don't care who the president is. And he gains that power through administration, through his agencies, who are not elected, who are paid regardless of what they do and do not produce. They're not in the business of making things happen. They don't want to happen because they might lose their jobs. But the president controls that, and he will sign an executive over what they do, and he does it. That is losing our democracy and our republic. But the general public is not aware of that. Or they don't read much like this young man here did pretty good. He might go somewhere someday, I'm not sure where. But, you follow what I'm saying. They're unaware of it, and yet every day, every month, every year we let this go that much further. Your grandkids, great-grandkids will not have the United States of America. And I'm not an alarmist. If you study the history of the world and the empires that were created, most of them were created because of lack of understanding and belief by the general public, and they let the so-called leaders do it, and everybody was happy as long as they could have a blood beer and go and watch it. And that's not right, and that's why I get very emotional about it. The states themselves have to start saying, no, we're going to do this, and some states are doing it, and putting the finger to the federal government. Everybody says, you're talking anarchy. No, I'm talking about saving a democracy, making sure we're free. Because my big goal and why we were great is we were free to think. We were free to win or fail. And now you have a group of people in Congress that believes in socialism. That everybody's got to do the same thing the same way because we told you we know better than you. That's socialism. And you don't have the imagination or the belief to go forward. Anybody that thinks a country can survive by taking money from you and giving it to him, it's not going to be long before you realize you shouldn't work because he's got the money. You need both quit working, and the country becomes stagnated, and it's all done. And now you have a general period of time of comfort. Food's good, music's good, dance the streets, no worry, you don't have to get up. Sounds like our CARES bill, and people got more money in unemployment than they did working. But I'm saying this is what has affected our country right now. I go back to the original Tom, and I'll answer questions about this. Is the infrastructure bill is part of that problem. They want the government to do everything. Why would anybody want the government to take lead out of your house? Although you have lead pipes, that's your responsibility. You own the house, it's not the government's responsibility. Well, that's part of infrastructure. You tell me how you relate to that. I don't see that. That's part of the package. And that goes in a lot of other things. Some of them good projects. I told the president, I said, let's have individual bills. Let's not put this all together. Let's keep it in the transportation bill. And I think the Senate's tried to do that. They do have some nonsense in it. Goes back to my closing remarks again. How are you going to pay for it? And that's something we all have to ask ourselves, because I think we have to pay for it. You cannot print money as we're printing. Dollar after dollar after dollar, expect to have a viable economy 25 years from now. 25 years from now. That's how fast this will come if we don't change it. Now, with those terrible words and ending, I'm open for questions and comments, whatever you would like to talk about. I may sit down to do it, and if you don't mind, if it's okay, and we'll do that. Okay. All right, guys, what are we doing? You don't even give me any applause. What the hell's the matter with you guys?
Do we have any written questions?
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
Okay, on your mileage tax, you want us to report
No,
the auto manufacturer would report our
Because they know
mileage
what you
to
get.
them? I
To the
know,
government. Yeah, they will know where you're going. It's your total mileage.
Yeah.
And right now they know exactly where you are. How many of you got a Cadillac right here? They'll tell you right now. They'll tell you exactly where you are and when you are. They can stop your car. You know, that's not my idea that way. But if you either that or straight gas tax. But I like the mileage tax that it gets to my electric cars. And that's important to me. I happen to have an electric car. I'm a greenie. But I've got a Tesla. I did it for one reason. Fastest damn car I've ever had in my life. And I've got Corvettes, hot rod you can be, built some, but that sucker will put your eyeballs out. I love it. Look at her. It's true.
So Congressman, first thing I'm going to do if they pass that is I'm going to disable that GPS in my car.
I have pre-1980.
It'll be a wreck pretty quick. It won't take long.
So I do have a question for you, and this is a written question. It says the governor sent you a letter on June 28th requesting your help correcting the Alaska Railroad transfer route. Is it possible to add language in the infrastructure bill to ensure the railroad doesn't claim fee simple ownership of private property or any other bill?
Very unlikely. It's going to go to court. I know that does make people happy, and they'll probably find out who owns it. I had a settlement, right, wrong, or indifferent, that I thought was somewhat fair, and but I think it's in the courts, and it'll go through the courts. I know you don't like that, but that's the truth. That's the way it is.
Yeah, I think that one's headed to the courts too.
Yeah.
So I got some questions I could ask, but does anybody else in the room have a question they want to ask the Congressman? Marianne?
Okay,
Congressman, first of all, thank you for all you do. We so appreciate it. When I think about infrastructure, I think about one of the most important issues for us here in Alaska is our energy infrastructure. And can you please give us a little bit of an idea of what the key focus areas will be on energy infrastructure and how you could help us here in Alaska?
Well, you bring up a good question. As far as infrastructure goes within the state with this administration, it's going to be very slim. They're hell-bent for election, like, supposedly for climate change, not having any fossil fuels. Now, that's not gonna happen, but they'll impede it. They have the most majority of the oil in Alaska, not the most of it, a lot of it is on federal lands. They will not let us develop those. They're trying to take it away from Manwar. We think because the state did make those bids, they have a good court case if they try to do that, and that may help the oil industry out. But we have to do infrastructure as far as energy goes in the state, is we have to get outside the oil field a little bit. Just get outside a little bit and think of the other forms of energy we have, and can we make an energy plan? There is no energy plan in the state. We should have an energy plan. And that include propane, I had to say that for propane, and hydrogen, and it includes geothermal, all those different forms of energy, because this is probably the pivot area for industrial might is Alaska, because we have the energy if we develop it. And we have it on our state lands. We try to get the federal lands, but right now they don't want you to build a dam, they want to tear them up. But we have the energy to really produce, I say, a cheap enough source to develop our resources. Now, we've sold every one of our resources outside in the raw, but fish now, that's changed. The rest of our timber, our minerals, everything, oil, has all been shipped out because we don't have the energy to add value to it. You need the energy to have the value to it. But fossil fuels, I always get a kick. We're going to eliminate fossil fuels. We may eliminate a percentage over a period of time for propulsion. That's for cars, trucks, and airplanes, of course, and maybe trains too. But we're not going to eliminate it. I guarantee you that. If you look at a barrel, 42 gallons of oil, which that's a barrel, but not many people, 44, 42? 42. 42, okay. You look at it, I think it's 20% of that oil goes into propulsion. The rest goes into this rug. Your shoes, your shoes, you name it. The cover on this chair, that's a petroleum product. So it's a huge need. Those molecules are the only ones you can restructure in so many different things. So that's going to be valuable in the long run. And the sideline, though, we're not going to have a total electric car fleet by 2030 or 2050. I'm talking maybe, I would say 3,000. Maybe. Now, having said that, they're going to have electric cars, and I'm owner of one of them. We're not producing electricity. How are you going to run a car that doesn't have electricity? Oh, we're going to get it from the government. Well, hell you are. Nelson, but produce hot air. That's about it, But that is a big challenge. It's going to be a challenge. So I'm still big on fossil fuels, but I want us to get outside of it as far as the economy of this thing. And we do that. Geothermal, I got Bernie Carl. I don't know, by the way, I got to tell you a story about it. How many of you know Bernie Carl? Oh, God bless you. And my sympathy, because he's my dear friend. But, the fire, the monsoon fire. And I'm in contact with them all the time, and they wanted him to evacuate. They threatened him and everything else. He said, no, I'm not doing it. I'm staying right here. And it's his property. You can't get insurance in that business up there. That's other people don't realize. He had his 3 fire trucks, he had a cat, he had a couple of big water trucks, he had 10 on all the roofs but one place, and he went to the 2004 fire, and he's not gonna leave. But the government's trying to tell him he had to leave. And he says, up yours, I'm not leaving. He stayed there, and by the way, he even got customers, which I thought was funny. They came in and sat in the hot tub and listened to the trees as they went, boom, But, he's also, though, building a geothermal project out in Dutch Harbor, on Alaska. And if it works, the advantage to that area for fish processing, it'll compete against Kodiak, because Kodiak has the Terra Lake project, and they used to use diesel fuels. So we need to produce more electricity. Hydro, you betcha. Sudetla Dam, you betcha. That lake up there, Wakataka, you betcha. Add all those together, then businesses would come to Alaska because the power is cheaper. They're not doing it in the lower 48. And look what's happening in Arizona and California now. With Lake Mead going down, they won't even have enough water to wash their teeth, let alone generate power. You know, couldn't have a better group, by the way, but that's beside the point. All right, what else we got?
I have one for you.
Okay, Quitter.
Go ahead.
How do we move as Alaskan? How do we get from our state being, like we talked about before, being a raw producer to a producer of a product to a byproduct? Because the key to me for Alaska to grow and have sustainable jobs is to go from being a raw fish producer, raw timber, raw oil and gas, and you know, how do we harness this the Biden money or whatever we got there to help us move? I mean, I'm a gas producer. Our company produces the second largest producer in Cook Inlet, but you know, can we use that energy in any way helping go to a product to a byproduct?
It goes back to what he said, the key to it is cheap energy. You can make any product and add value to it if you have cheap energy. But we need that grid. You know, some of you guys know Warren Buffett's investment group up here the other day. I think you guys are aware of that, Marianne, I think they were up here. And they're looking, they want to put a grid system in, combine all our, you know, we have how many different grid systems?
Yeah, I heard it's $1 billion for a grid system that pays back in 2 years, but we never do it.
I know, but that takes imagination and drive from the individuals and leadership that says, let's do it. See, what happened to it, I know, I'm not being critical now, but what happened to us when we got the oil money?
You can be, we were okay.
No, we get the oil money and we get what? We get lazy. No vision, no idea to do anything because it's comfortable. The worst thing that happens to mankind is when he gets comfortable. I can show, I wrote my thesis on the benefits of war and damn near got thrown out of college. But I can show you every great advancement came when man was under pressure, and woman, under pressure. And I'm talking transportation, medicine, communication. We did great strides. And then we get comfortable. And Alaska, until we got that oil money, I love my oil companies, but when we got that oil money, we had the imagination to do things. By the way, we weren't of any interest in the lower 48. Okay? But as soon as we found that damn oil, they want to make a park out of us. That's our biggest challenge. And there's still a large segment of our society in the lower 48 look upon this as a playground. I love tourism, don't get me wrong, but tourism does not work in this sound economy across the nation. It's surplus money. And it works, you got surplus money. And it's like all short-term money. I support it, but the point is you got to have what you said, added value to every raw product we have. At Red Dog Mine, everything goes out on boat. It should be smeltered right there. We got, I don't know how many different top mines we hope we'll develop. It should add value, but you got to have that cheap power. Otherwise, you don't do anything. And that means someone's got to set up a power system. And I would include gas, but I haven't written you off on gas because it's very important. The whole, not in lower 48, they don't want to use gas anymore. It pollutes the air. You know, never mind. I talk too much. What else we got?
I have a question here on
Here.
I'm making sure this is working. So a question here on just on rare earth metals, anything we can do to move forward on those, and also just your opinion about micro-nuclear plants. As you know, Senator Murkowski's been supporting that, and they've been experimented with, and people have talked about them for decades up here.
Well, two things. I am, no, it doesn't make a damn bit of difference, but I happen to be the vice chairman now of the Mineral Caucus, because rare earths, you can't do any of this stuff they're talking about unless you have the minerals to do it. You know, you take this phone, I think it's got 27 types of minerals in this stupid phone. And that's what everybody communicates, and all of it's coming from someplace overseas. So we need to develop those, and we are loaded with it in Alaska. A lot of it's on restricted land. But where, you know, I maybe heard about Biden's 30-30. He wants to take 30% of the land that's not protected now and put it in a protected classification. A lot of it's in Alaska. I mean, we already got 87 million acres of land restricted. So he wants to add another 30% of that. And he wants to take 30% of our ocean. And I can guarantee if he has his way, and I'm really being critical, they will take the fishing areas, because then they have double the amount that they can fish. I mean, can't fish anymore. So that's what they're going to try to do. I've got on it with very frankly, you wouldn't believe it, Eric Salwell from California, who's under investigation. He and I have something similar in common. But we want to make sure that if that bill is going, we have the property cataloged, that we know what's there, so they can't set it aside and have restrictive use of it, because we need those minerals. Now, nuclear plants, I get a kick out of Lisa, God bless her. Where's she been? I've been trying to get a nuclear plant, damn near got it down in Galena. They had an Air Force base, as you remember, down there. I had Mitsubishi came in and said, we'll put in a silo nuclear plant, good for 35 years, there is no waste, and we will remove it when it deteriorates and put a new one in. I got the state degree, I got a Galena degree, and then I got stuck with the regulatory commission back in Washington, D.C. And that's our big challenge. There's nothing new about it. They got these plants going around the world, and they, I think about Bethel, for instance. They don't have hydro. They don't have, they may have some gas, but they don't have it now. And they have, probably the largest population concentrated, 59 villages in that area, all running diesel. And if you have one nuclear plant and put in the transmission lines, which I put them underground, I mean, you'd have $0.015 a kilowatt. And that's what we have to start thinking about. I try to tell the enviros that, we can't use nuclear. Then what are you going to use? You don't want petroleum. You don't want to build a dam. Or we'll use sun. Okay, we're going to try that 21st of December. We're going to see how it goes. And or wind. Did you see me on television when Obama came down with his energy package? I hope you did, because I was really silly. I had a hat with a spinner on it, and I put it on, and it said Obama's energy policy. And we had a hearing. Of course, it was on television. And my poor daughter said, "Daddy, that looks so bad. It's so silly." I said, "You damn right, it's silly." But they until we develop the right batteries and can store electricity produced by the so-called exotic ways, we're smoking pot. It's legal here in the state, by the way. But anyway, I'm just saying that's the problem we got right now. One, I got to tell you that story about pot bill. I have one thing I want to do and I won't do, and I am running for re-election. I want you to know that. But I want to say, you can give away any product made in your state or produced or grown. And one of my desires is to have 435 joints in my coat. Get down there on the floor. My fellow colleagues, this is the day we have to celebrate. We're working together. We're going to have a joint session. Oh, God. Woo! That makes the news.
I'm sure you can find some sponsors.
Okay, who else you got?
Let's see. Annetta, do you have a question?
I do.
Okay.
Congressman, we recently had an energy policy study group session with the Electrical Vehicle Association of Alaska, and talking about the expansion and rollout of infrastructure and electric vehicles. And it just occurs to me that we don't have a tax policy that acknowledges and recognizes the growth of electric vehicles and their use and wear on our infrastructure. How are we going to accomplish that?
Well, again, I've talked to, by the way, I have a good relationship with the Secretary of Transportation. I talked to him quite a bit. I can't pronounce his last name. I'm afraid I'll mispronounce it, Biaggi or whatever his name is. But we recognize that challenge. And it's what I said in my opening. We got 7 million cars on the road today, electric cars, about 3% of our total cars. But that's eating up our roads. And they get a tax break when they buy a car. They've stopped some of that, but not all of it. We have to recognize this is a vehicle that's using our roads, and that's why I go back to the mileage tax. That's the only way you can do it. You can't get them for gas tax. You got to get a mileage tax. There's another problem within the state of Alaska, and of course the lower 48 to some degree, is charging stations. Now, Biden has this huge charging station program that you're going to pay for. Now, I don't think the government ever paid for a gas station. Am I wrong? I don't think, yeah. They open up the market. Now, I argued, okay, go to a gas station, and they have a lot of, Tesla's put a huge amount of chargers in now, but they're strange areas. I mean, behind Walmarts or in Sam's Club or someplace like that. And you have to have a computer to figure out where they are, because you got 280 miles, my car gets 300 miles on a charge. You don't want to go above 280, so you have to find a place. Sometimes, where in the hell is it? So you got to figure it out on that computer, and I have a hard time figuring out a computer, period. So that's one of my biggest concerns, that we make it simpler. I suggested putting in every station, and the argument against that, well, there's not enough room, because it takes, the fastest one you got right now is 35 minutes. They usually take about 50 minutes, 45 minutes. Now, they claim they're gonna have faster ones. I worry about it being too fast, it may burn the batteries out. But that means you have to sit there and have coffee and everything else. Now, it's great for these road stands if there's parking, but most of our service stations don't have the parking. So you'd have to have an area like the parking lot in, Walmart, one of the big garage parking lots, and then where they could get out and go visit and do some shopping and everything else. I think it's a moneymaker. But that has to change that whole structure. And then we have to recognize they are using our roads up. And they have to pay as far as I'm concerned. It's not fair. What else we got?
Yes, sir. To your right.
So is your Tesla here in Anchorage? or-
No, it's back east. I
okay.
I have it back east.
I haven't seen any charging stations around Alaska.
Well, they got some here.
Well, I know there's some around. but
It's
you
pretty
know-
short, yeah. And you need to
I haven't
think.
seen too many electric cars around Alaska either.
More than you think there are.
1,600
But we need the charging stations. Now, I have a charging station at my house because I had a welding machine. I used to work on cars, made some good cars in my life. And I had welding machines and everything else, so it was wired for that, so I got a charging station. And I just go home at night and plug it in, and it's charged the next morning, and away we go. At one charge will last, I have 50 miles a day I drive, so it's 3 days, 2 days. You have to, that's one other reason. It saves me a lot of money. Believe it or not, it saves me a lot of money because the price of gas is sky high now. Why the public puts up with that nonsense? In 7 months, it went up $1.15. And no one said a word. And I want to blame Biden on that because of his policy of no petroleum production. Shut down the fracking, the leasing, no Anwar, and that but a shockwave. And now Saudi Arabia's over there, again. I can go down to the difference there, but they're happier in hell. We refinanced the Atala just because of that action. We were self-sufficient, independent, on January 6th. And then, man, we don't got January 6th. Anyway, I talked to him. What else we got?
So, I have a question for you about how we're gonna finance all this. So you said it's gotta be financed, and I don't disagree with you. We can't keep spending trillions and trillions of dollars that we just print. But the Biden tax plan, I think, is pretty horrific. Well, what do you think his chances are of getting that through Congress? Should we be concerned?
You should be concerned. My goal, and I'm being somewhat political now, but they're screwed up so bad right now, we should be able to take the House and we can put a stop to this nonsense. Because he wants to undo all the tax structure that Trump passed because it's Trump's tax bill. Actually, it's the House's tax bill. And I think it's a good tax bill. I happen to believe I believe I'm not misquoting, even at 21%, we're the heaviest corporate tax we have in the country. I think that's right, I may be wrong. And I still say we might want to put a little corporate tax. That's where I get in trouble with some of my don't do that. I think we could raise it to 23% and help pay for that product. Primarily because you look at the big tech companies we have now making money off our roads and don't pay much. That's what I'm saying. We can look at it, analyze it, get a pencil. I'm not a great mathematician. But the big thing is the average user ought to pay. And I don't think tolls work. I'll be right up front with you. Tolls are a joke. I think you ought to be charged when you get in that car. And I had a proposal for tire tax. You buy a car, it's got 4 tires on it, I charge you $500 a tire. But you only drive 100 miles a year. And she drives 10,000 miles a year. Why should you have to pay the same thing she does? I'm talking about a fairness doctrine. So that's going to be the big problem. It's not going to be easy. The easiest thing is a gas tax for gas-driven vehicles. But then we have to get back to the electric cars. Because I'm not going to have these damn cars running down that road and not pay for the asphalt we put there. So that's the big challenge. But we can't back away from it. You cannot print money to pay for this transportation, and that's what they want to do right now. They're going to have a little corporate tax and nothing else. They said, well, they found some money over here. Money it wasn't spent. How do you find money that belongs to you and you happen to spend it for here and move it over here and say, I made progress, I made money? That's only in government can that happen. I mean, it's just stupid, you know.
Yeah, I think it's not just paying for the infrastructure tax, but it's bill. It's also paying for the PPP, for the CARES Act, and all the other social welfare programs and climate change agendas can be passed potentially in the next year and a half. Hopefully we'll see a sea change in the midterms though.
We need it, and by the way, I'm bipartisan this way. We have to perform better too. We didn't do such a great job when we were in there. And I've told my McCarthy and we can't continue to say no, have a solution to the problem, and then solve it. Don't just go crazy like I'm bad at Nancy now because she went so far left, I'm surprised she can put her stockings on. If they call them stockings anymore, I'm pantyhose, I don't care. But my point is she went so, and she's not that way really, but she's so afraid of losing that slot of being speaker. And I told her before, when I says, be the Speaker of the House. And what if I'd been that speaker, I'd have gone to the Republican side in a heartbeat. When the AOC and that squad shot their mouth off, and I'd have got 20 Republicans by offering him something, a good deal, you only have to slap them once. That's all you gotta do. And they shut up. And I told Boehner that on our side there. We let the Freedom Caucus run our caucus. Everybody's popular, really popular to talk about what we're gonna do, and they get nothing done. Then you go over and get votes to get something done. You've accomplished a goal, and don't take them along until they can still do what he wants to do to us. I mean, that's what I do. I'm not running for speaker, by the way. I was going to say I was going to run for the Senate, but I told Lisa, no, I'm not going to do that. I wouldn't go to that hole for anything.
I think we have one more question.
Yes.
In addition to the cheap energy infrastructure, communications infrastructure is important to our development up here. What are your thoughts on that? And I know Tesla is putting in some low orbiting satellites, but I don't know if how that'll work.
Communication. One thing about this COVID. By the way, I'm not bragging, but I've been through 5 epidemics in my life. Some of them worse than one we had. But we didn't have television. Okay? So let's face up to that fact. But it did bring out a couple good things. One is communication, broadband, satellite work in every household. I think you're going to see a lot of expansion. I believe that very strongly. It's a popular issue and it works. It's not new. Ted did this, the idea of telemedicine was in Alaska before any place else. And it worked. And now the satellite issue, not just Tesla, the other group putting some, I don't know how many are going up.
OneWeb.
What is it?
OneWeb.
And I think you're going to see huge expansion satellite-wise. That's my own opinion. I'm still worried a little bit about it. Shows I'm old-fashioned. What the hell are we going to do? All things go in the wrong direction? Are they going in the right direction or wrong direction? Are they standing still? They're going to run into one another. I mean, I'm not big. You get out there and you may not be able to do it here in Anchorage because you got too many lights. But get out there in the flatlands of Fort Yukon area and look at the night lights and see how many moving things are up there. It's amazing. You go, holy shit. Some of them big, some of them small. So it's going to be the future. I get very concerned sometimes because old-fashioned wise, we really don't talk to one another like this. I don't like that. I mean, Zoom drove me nuts. I mean, that silly ass flat screen looking at the person, no pants on. I mean, that just, drove me crazy. Because how do you know what you're thinking if I can't see that? All the reflections on your face. Right now you're saying he's full of shit. But you follow what I'm saying, but we did it. Everybody, now we'll say, don't invest in high-rise buildings.
In Florida.
No, office buildings. I don't think you're gonna see the demand for it. My stepson he's head of a State Farm all over the damn East Coast. Big headquarters in Atlanta. Big, like 25-story bullshit, And they closed it down, including his office. And he had a higher return from the people that worked for him at home than they did in the offices. And he also found out, bless his soul, he could be any place in the world and still work. He became a frequent flyer. You follow what I'm saying? Now that's going to change. Now I don't like that. I still think the energy exposed between people in an office, if it's done right, or the teamwork, that makes you a team. It's hard to be a team when it's just a flat screen. That's my own opinion, and I'm sticking with it. What else we got?
Got one more question over here.
Yep. Congressman Young, I've been involved with the geothermal for quite a bit with Bernie Caro and then another entrepreneur in Acton called Starkey Wilson, who passed away. And he was trying to put a geothermal plant there for the fish processing, a Trident, which would work. At that time, they'd have very few people, but the processor did. But his dream was to not only produce geothermal, but to produce hydrogen, and then put a little mooring station out there for all the ships that come through the pass, and have those ships have hydrogen in there. So could you talk a little bit about not only geothermal, but about hydrogen and what your thoughts are on that?
Well, the geothermal is one of the godsends of Alaska. With the volcanic action we have, I don't know how many billion BTUs to harness it. You know, he looked out, Larry, he gets to buy the beer. Last guy in gets to buy the beer. But no, it's not a new idea, it does work.
Yes.
And remember, Iceland has the largest aluminum production in the world. They don't have any fossil fuels, they don't have any dams, they have geothermal.
Yeah.
The energy is cheap. And we can do that on Alaska. I've tried, and Bernie's deal on Alaska is, to me, a godsend for the fishing industry. You're right.
But they're not signing up.
Look, but you gotta understand, people are funny. Sometimes it's new or it's different. It won't work. And that's why I go back to I still got people who got vision. Those that get lazy and have no vision, we do not succeed and progress. And I do believe Bernie's gonna win this battle. I'm trying to get him, I hate to say this, trying to get him some money out of FERC. And by the way, FERC has never produced 1 kilowatt in his whole career. They'll give you 50 reasons why he can't produce it, but they won't help you produce it.
But if I pay 25% overrides and royalties on my assets for gas,
Yep.
why should geothermal get a free pass?
Well,
They
okay, how
should
about
pay,
you?
they
We'll
should
help
pay
you out too.
25% royalty.
See, we got a gas
and
and
they should pay
geothermal.
property taxes like I do.
Well, let's do it.
Just like them.
But as long
they-
as it's fair game field, fair
As
field.
long as it's equal,
That's
they should
equal.
pay their fair
But
share.
if we do it, think of the power you got.
The only people paying really royalties in the state is oil and gas right now.
That's right. I
No
don't deny
other
that.
resource, everybody else is getting a free ride on resources.
And I don't deny that. I'm not arguing with you. But that's a matter of doing it the right way.
Yeah.
And now, Bernie right now is using, I think, mostly private money or investment money. He hasn't got any federal dollars at all. And if he gets that done, then he'll do the fishing industry. Now, hydrogen, there's a hydrogen lady right now. I think it is one of the bigger and more advanced capabilities for production. Now, you have a little slight problem. Very flammable, explosive. A lot of structures like that ship, that's the thing you're gonna worry about. The ship has to reconfigure pressure tanks will work. But it is a hell of a field, and all it is water and whatever it is, and it works. And that's something that's down the line we should be looking at. And don't worry, there's still be room for your petroleum products, because there's no molecules,
We're just
there's no
natural
damn
gas. We're
molecules
just
for the
natural
rest
gas,
of
a
it.
very clean thing to keep people warm.
Well, there's a lot of molecules in
Hydrogen
gas.
that keep anybody warm right now.
So, you know, John, one way to produce hydrogen is from natural gas.
Yeah.
I know. I asked him about byproducts and products.
That's right, you know, that's good.
Well, we're right at 5 o'clock, so I think we'll probably, is there any other burning questions out there?
Oh,
Okay.
one last thing comment. Now, I've got a bill, I want you to help me in the state legislature, not doing anything. I want them to pay my wife to keep me alive for 10 years. I think I'm worth it, God damn it, to keep me alive for 10 years, and think of the amount of money I'm putting.
We think so too.
Thank you all, guys, appreciate it, God bless you.
Thank you, Congressman. I really appreciate your comments today. Unfortunately, you confirmed some of my suspicions about what's going on with some of these big bills, but we trust that the House and those who have long-term vision and been there for a while will get the right thing done, so we appreciate that.
We have a good team, I want to stress that. Some people may not agree, but we got a pretty good team. Only 3 of us, we're still ranked at number 3 in the total Congress.
It's good.
Yeah.
Now that's damn good. We're 1, we've been to 2 or 3, we're trying to keep in that range, top group. So anyway, all right, drink your beer.
All right, so for those of you who aren't members of Commonwealth North, there's some applications here on the table. If you'd like to join us, feel free. And there's more stuff like this to come, so if you're members, please sign up. We also have some food over here, so everybody help yourself to some hors d'oeuvres. And feel free to socialize and talk to the Congressman a little bit more.
I know.
Thanks.
Now, the corporate tax.
I'll go to the bathroom.
All right.